Over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to change your financial life forever. The way you spend, save, earn, learn about, and grow your money will drastically shift on a fundamental level. This video contains a way to view money that eliminates emotion and will help you break free from the nightmare that debt can create. If you're in a hole, I will get you out of it. If you want to establish good habits, I'll get you on solid ground. If you want to transcend to higher levels of financial freedom, I will make sure you rise. Transparently, I also struggle financially. This isn't one of your run-of-the-mill, let me tour you through my mansion and tell you how poor you are YouTube videos. I want this to be an honest dialogue between people who have money anxiety, and I lead in that category. I have a better relationship with money now more than ever. All that said, why does everyone feel so hopeless in the richest country in the world? As of 2024, 62% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt has surpassed 1.1 trillion, with average interest rates exceeding 20%. Both are record highs. Meanwhile, nearly 2/3 of adults, or 63%, say they could not cover a $500 emergency without borrowing or selling something. Driving this instability are stagnant wages and skyrocketing costs. Real wages have barely budged since the 1970s. Meanwhile, home prices have risen 130% since the 90s, and healthcare costs per person have tripled since the year 2000. If it feels like the deck is stacked against us, that's because it is. You've probably heard this before. Here in the United States, it's not uncommon to hear about the shrinking middle class or the lack of financial health that is plaguing individuals and families. Perhaps like many of you, financial insecurity has been impacting my life since before I even understood the concept of money. Growing up, my family fluctuated from lower class to lower middle class. Some periods were fraught with anxiety. Other periods were more joyous because we could essentially afford the luxury of being relaxed. This is not a tiny violin story. We were not the poorest and we were certainly not the richest. And in fact, that kind of categorization is one of the central problems caused by money. In America, we identify with it so much that what's simply meant to be a tool for life becomes an extension of our very being. When we start to identify with it that way, having it and not having it are bound to wreak havoc on our mind. It's why so many people are in deep debt, and it's also why absurdly rich people continue to do absurd things to get even richer. Money is no longer a currency to be exchanged for goods and services. Instead, in America, it has become the currency of self. We are programmed to think the more you have, the better you are. The less you have, the worse you are. But nothing could be further from the truth. Finance is unfair. Yes, our financial health is impacted by the choices we make. But those choices don't happen in a vacuum. In America, our economy is designed to be cunning and predatory. Think about it, we're surrounded by constant advertising. Marketers exploit our neural pathways. They want us to buy things that we don't need to address manufactured problems that don't exist. The advent of cookie tracking and ad targeting means that companies can wear you down across platforms, pressing your buttons and exploiting moments of weakness to make you buy. Easy access to credit. 83% of adults own at least one credit card. That's 4 out of 5 adults. By the way, that stat doesn't change very much for lower middle class adults, for whom there is around 80% credit card ownership. 43% of American adults are in credit card debt, carrying an average of $7,000. Almost half the country is in $7,000 of debt, just to credit card companies, let alone student loans, healthcare bills, mortgage payments. Markets are supposed to dictate price, but when so much of what we buy is produced by a small handful of companies, those companies can exploit their pseudo-monopolies to charge whatever they want. Consumers are left to swallow the increase or go without the product. But in America, monopolies now control all of the necessities, so going without is no longer an option. And all the competitors are at the same price point. And finally, outrageous tax policy. Every year, about a quarter of our earnings goes to the federal government. We don't have affordable healthcare, childcare, education, housing. Other countries laugh at our public transportation system, all while we work more hours than any other developed nation. I am 31, my grandparents are in their 80s. I pay roughly 60% more in taxes than they did when they were my age. As a struggling small business owner, I speak from experience when I say, we pay taxes just to pay our employees in this country. Then we tax the income of those employees. Then we tax every purchase they make with that income, and God forbid they own property, we'll tax them on that too. This video is totally non-political, but regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you should know the government is not working for us. We are working for them. If you don't hate taxes as much as I do yet, I want you to remember that every year, January, February, March, and depending on your tax bracket, maybe even all of April, don't belong to you. Those months belong to Uncle Sam. None of the money you work hard to earn in that time is yours. Again, I'm not trying to get political. I'm trying to wake you up. Close your eyes. Think about all the work you did from January through April of this year alone. Has the federal government ever done that much work for you? And finally, the disappearing middle class. The reason for such a vast amount of wealth in the hands of so few is multifaceted. But there is one obvious reason. When you have $1 million, making $5 million is cosmically easier than it is for someone in debt to achieve wealth. When you have $1 billion, the same principle applies, just more so. If being rich makes you richer, then logic dictates that the same principle applies to the inverse. Being poor makes you poorer. The gap widens the gap. And as much as this angers me, we won't change all of it overnight. Sometimes I lose hope that we'll ever change it at all. I don't let those thoughts win, but sometimes they do creep in. That said, where we have to focus our energy is on managing our personal finances, not on resenting the current economic state of the world. So you need to know, all of my clients had to surrender themselves to these 4 truths before improving their personal relationship with money. And it's of my strong opinion that you will have to do the same. 1, money is important. Saying it isn't is a platitude. It informs a lot of our life's choices. It's ubiquitous. It does, in fact, make the secular world go round. Heavy emphasis on secular. 2, money is not good or bad. It mirrors our choices. If we make safe, healthy, generous, responsible choices, money will help make those choices more impactful. 3, and perk up your ears because this might be the hardest to accept. Just because money is important doesn't mean we have to stress about it. 4, if money isn't providing real value to you or someone that you care for, then it's providing value to someone or something else. When we accept these 4 truths and adjust our outlook, we can leverage the power of money as a tool. So, how can we do right by ourselves and our loved ones when the economic deck seems so heavily stacked against us? We need to take a good, hard look at our personal monetary ecosystem. The world is not going to become more affordable anytime soon, and most of us have debts that aren't going anywhere, myself included. We need to stand on spiritual ground and get started on the process of balancing the books. One optimistic thing I try to remind my clients of is that personal finance issues are actually more black and white than most of life's other big challenges. Let's embrace that lack of gray area to do the math. If you're spending because of your feelings, you're losing control of your money. Most Americans don't spend money on the things they need. Many of my clients acknowledge they don't even want a lot of the things they buy. And even when we do want them, once we have them, the good feeling that accompanied the acquisition doesn't last. We are spending because of a mechanism that gives us a sense of pleasure. We look for this kind of superficial pleasure because we are stressed, depressed, unthrilled, and unfulfilled. And the feeling of online shopping or swiping the card gives us a little tickle that for a moment takes the pain away. Our grandparents, by the way, were trained to hate having to buy something. Wear hand-me-downs. If it's broken, fix it. Don't buy stuff you don't need. But now, we love to buy crap. Modern purchases in America are designed to feel victorious. Unfortunately, that feeling is fleeting, and the resultant debt is 1,000 times more painful than the pleasure of the initial feeling. When we lack peace of mind, making solid financial decisions is impossible because we can always purchase a hit of relief. It's so easy. Get a good feeling now and make paying for it tomorrow's problem. I survey my clients and I ask them what emotions most often triggered negative or impulsive spending. And these 3 came up again and again. Firstly, boredom. The fear of stillness, of unoccupied time, of being left alone with our thoughts. The fear of resigning ourselves to the reality that this is our life at this moment. So spending becomes an escape. Stress and anxiety. When we feel like we can't handle what life is throwing at us, why not buy some magical cure-all I just saw on TikTok Shop? It's a great way to get us to give up control while making us feel like we are exerting it. Inadequacy. Perhaps the most powerful of the 3. When we feel inadequate, we try and buy our way into feeling good about our station in life. When we are constantly comparing ourselves to others and trying to keep up with the Joneses, we spend money we don't have.
Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need.
These 3 emotions are rooted in fear. Fear begets more fear. We avoid it and it grows. We think of financial problems as something to be handled down the road, and this always results in them getting larger and more unwieldy. That is why the first step is awareness. It is as simple as starting to think about the time and energy you put into making the money you are about to spend before you spend it. So let's say I get paid $10 an hour to mow grass. It is hot, difficult work. And let's say I want to buy an $80 pair of headphones. I don't ask myself if I'm willing to part with the $80. I ask myself if I'm willing to drop everything and mow lawns for 8 hours straight right now to acquire these headphones. The answer, when I frame potential purchases this way, is no 99% of the time. Once you have practiced pre-purchase awareness enough, you will begin to internalize the value of a dollar. The goal? Buy things that enrich your life and agonize at buying things that don't. The way our grandparents did. Think of purchases like investments. Obviously, if you buy a list of healthy groceries, those groceries are not going to pay you a monetary dividend, but they will improve your well-being. We don't need to become compulsive about making sure we are only spending money on assets, but we do need to ensure that our purchases are having a net positive impact. Wealth is not well-being. There are plenty of rich, deeply unhappy people in the world. And I have met plenty of people who are financially worse off than me, but don't carry the chronic anxiety that I do. Money is nothing more than a tool. If we are setting out to build a house, we don't continue to gather supplies thinking that the more supplies we acquire, the better the house will be. Instead, we lay out plans for the structure and gather what is needed. Money acts in the same way. Think about what kind of financial house you want to build, and think about what you will need to make it happen monetarily. Money is nothing more than a means to an end. Spend serious time being mindful about your desired ends. And don't be like me and waste years of your life being anxious about the means. When we reverse engineer our goals, we can begin to put money into perspective. I am sure that plenty of folks watching this video are struggling to get past the immediate anxiety they feel in regards to their current debt situation. The majority of Americans have debt on the books, and full disclosure, I am one of those people. Here are some practical things I do to ensure I am taking useful action against my debt, building my wealth, reducing my anxiety, and fostering a feeling of prosperity. Adjusting my spending. I have finally reached a place where every purchase is scrutinized based on necessity. I often think about the time I worked to earn the money I am about to spend. If I leave the house without any intent to buy something, I don't. I also don't have any shopping apps on my phone. I do whatever I can to avoid impulse purchases. Don't spend based on emotion. If you have seen my video about eating habits, this is going to sound familiar. I do not eat or spend as a direct result of feeling bored, anxious, stressed, depressed, lonely, or impatient. Find inexpensive entertainment. The older I get, the more I realize that free or cheap entertainment is often the most enriching. Exercise is almost always cheap. Using my body, walking, or playing sports like tennis with friends. Reading books that are actually enjoyable and don't feel like homework. Doing some light financial literacy research. Dave Ramsey's podcast is very practical and actually kind of fun to listen to. Consider throwing it on in the background when you are cooking or cleaning. Eating in versus dining out. This is the bane of my existence, gang. I am so bad at this, but I'm going to try and be better to set a good example for y'all. Eating out, especially when alcohol makes its way onto the tab, really adds up over the course of a month. Do what you can, leave the rest in God's hands. Look, when it comes to money, the serenity prayer applies. Do what you can and build some consistency with making smart financial choices, and your financial woes will come to an end. I try to stay aware of what my interest rates are and pay off the debts with the highest rates first. I don't torture myself, but I stay consistent and I do the math. I have a plan. Wait, why am I taking out my wallet? There are two tactics marketers most often use to get you to buy. We already talked about the first. They try and convince you that you have a problem and in turn try and sell you the solution. The second tactic is that they try and create a sense of urgency. They make you think that if you don't immediately pull the trigger, then you miss out on some deal. This is nothing more than a cheap psychological trick. Don't fall for it. There are thousands of things I bought over the years that I don't need and frankly don't even want. I can't help but wonder what my life would be like if I had the awareness then to say no. Invest time in health. When we feel like our external financial world is falling down around us, we can always take care of the temple. I am a huge believer in taking advantage of whatever physical abilities we have. Even if things on the outside don't seem to be working out, it will make us feel better on the inside. Finance can cause anxiety. Exercise eliminates anxiety. If you find yourself constantly stressed about money, try working it out. Literally. I hope you have realized by now that with the cards stacked against us, debt is an external symptom of an internal problem. We don't have the money-making environment our grandparents had, and we likely aren't getting back to it anytime soon. So we have to be the change we want to see in the world. We need to allow our needs to dictate our spending and our dreams to dictate what we save, not impulses or societal pressures. A lot of people ask, if you won $1 million today, would you continue doing what you are doing now? But let's say you just all of a sudden had $1 million in credit card debt. Do you feel lost, hopeless, like you are in a hole you will never climb out of? Well, let me assure you that the first step to climbing out is realizing that the feelings that got us here are only going to keep us here. We have to believe that it is possible, because it is. For you and for me. My name is Henry, and I blend physical fitness, mental health strategies, and spiritual principles to help you overcome anxiety and lead a more fulfilling life. You can think of me like your personal trainer for anxiety. We can connect, I can coach you, and I look forward to getting to know you and walking this path together. So if you are struggling with anxiety, please take the first step and book a call with me directly at the link in the description. Remember, do what you can with what you have where you are. Stay strong and keep experimenting.